Test. Check. 1, 2.
So we got a little bit of background. Tell us a little bit about how you came up. What was your first, big gig?
My first big gig actually early on was, I was working, kind of in a studio in St. Louis and was doing some live work as well, and ended up was working for some of the guys that are now in Jimmy Buffett's band.
Okay.
Peter Mayer, Jimmy Mayer, Roger Guth, and there's another guy named Scott Bryan that played with Sheryl Crow for years, and just through that circle of people and kind of doing some work at the studio they had there and doing some live stuff, I ended up meeting Sheryl Crow and did some studio work for her and did a little bit of live stuff when she was first getting going, and she said, hey, do you want to come on the road and be my live sound engineer? And I said, yeah, this sounds kind of fun. I saw what was kind of going on, and how the record company was really behind her first record, and got to meet Bill Bottrell and work with him and work with some really unbelievable people that I had always wanted to work with. And it just became a thing where it just kind of spiraled. And as the studio side of it kind of tapered off with everybody having home recording studios and everything else, live just became a really nice avenue in which to kind of pursue. And through doing Sheryl and doing some of those early tours, it was surprising how many people would go see her and say, well, hey, I want that guy that mixed Sheryl Crow. Like, we saw that show and it sounded unbelievable. Let's get that guy. And that's literally kind of initially how my name came up for Bon Jovi was, some of the people that were working for them said, oh, we know this guy, you got to hire this guy. And so I kind of got a call out of the blue from these guys, and initially thought it was a friend playing a joke on me, because it was a thing where, I got a call at home, and, and at that point, because I spent the better part of the 90s, with Sheryl and doing John Mellencamp and a few other things kind of in between, and, and became a staff engineer at Claire, during that time as well. But Bon Jovi was never really on my radar, and
pretty high up.
and it was a thing where I was certainly doing other things and knew people that were kind of involved in them, but to get the call kind of out of the blue that that they want me to come and mix the next tour, I was really kind of like, okay, it's very flattering. And as it turned out, Obie O'Brien, the studio engineer, had mixed the first couple legs of the Crush tour, and he had a family issue come up, and wasn't able to leave to go do the Australian and Japanese leg, and so I got the call that I was going to go start with the band in Australia at the end of 2000, and I literally was on the plane going to Australia, really didn't know much about it except I knew what the rig was, I knew it was an XL4, knew that was a bunch of really esoteric studio gear that Obie had spec'd out, being a studio guy, and I thought, wow, this is cool. This is stuff that I didn't even know Claire owned. So I was going, all right, this is pretty cool. I'm getting to go in and use all this stuff, and it's funny because John came up to me on the plane and said, hey, you got some big shoes to fill. And I was going, okay, great. And then I found out after the fact that my first show with these guys was the opening of Telstra Stadium in Melbourne in front of 75,000 people.
Oh, that's
and so that was my first show mixing Bon Jovi, was in front of 75,000 people at Telstra Stadium, and on top of it, I had to make a CD of the show that was collected 2 minutes after we were done because John was hopping a plane. So as soon as the disc was finalized, it went out of the player and handed over. So I had no idea what it sounded like. And
your client now has it.
But I knew John and the band had it, and they were going to listen to it, and so I ended up, we went to Japan, was our next show, and I ended up getting called into the dressing room, and John basically walked up to me and kind of said, so, how am I going to tell my best friend he's no longer mixing our tour? And I was kind of like, excuse me? And he said, congratulations, and then I got hugs from all the band members, and John says, well, he says, how in the world did you knew every guitar solo, you knew where every keyboard nuance was, you knew where all these things are, and I sheepishly admitted to him that I was the guitar player in my band in high school, and growing up in the Midwest, you couldn't turn on a radio station and not hear Bon Jovi in the 80s. And as it turned out, my band in high school played all Bon Jovi songs, and I knew how to play the entire Slippery When Wet record on guitar. And so I knew all the songs backwards and forwards, and and I had told them that in 1985 I was at Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis and saw Bon Jovi and Aldo Nova. together.
Oh,
And
wow.
John was blown away. He says, "You saw that show?" I said, "Yeah, there was a local band called, Boyfriend that opened up." And I told him the whole story. And I said, and he's like, "Wow, you were there?" And I said, "Yeah, I was in, in like junior high school or something of that nature." And I said, "I was in the 8th row." I said, "And I wanted to be Richie Sambora."
Yeah.
And Richie goes, "Oh, that's so cool." And Richie came up and gave me a big hug. And I've been here ever since. So.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Uh,
And I noticed it when we were just out for sound check, and it kind of looked like they maybe pulled that Roadhouse Blues out of nowhere.
John, I'll tell you, he likes to change things up, keep things fresh. And every night during Bad Medicine, they always kind of try and throw something in there in the middle that, like for a while they were doing Robert Palmer, Doctor, that kind of went with the Doctor, Bad Medicine kind of theme. But it's like you do it for 2 or 3 shows and people kind of expect it. So, they've done that for the last couple of shows. They used to throw in like Twist and Shout. They've done everything from, Shout to all kinds of different things. And yeah, this was something I guess he must have just thought, well, that'll fit in nicely. And because I go see a band that I really like and I go there and I'll see their engineer back there and it's like, okay, you can kind of hear everything or at times. But then a solo will happen, or there'll be a part that you hear on the record that you're like, wow, where's that signature delay that happens on this part, or where's that, or where's that? And you look back and the engineer's just kind of maybe got his arms crossed, and he's kind of looking around, or maybe he's taking a drink of his drink, and every now and then he'll kind of go,
Yeah.
and it's like, and you see that, and you're like, wow, man, it's like, you wonder, do they really get it? Or I don't know, I have to think, too, that some of these guys maybe don't necessarily come from a musical background.
And I think that's really key.
Most
of the guys that I know who I think are really good have come from some kind of musical background.
Yeah.
John Cooper's a noted exception
He's
to that.
great, yeah.
He's really good, but he
I
never
like
played
him.
an instrument in his life.
Sure.
But you don't see that very
No,
often.
you
Most of the
don't.
guys I really like, they were the guy in the band in high school who owned the PA and ended up,
That was me.
Yep, me too. That was same
That was
place,
me. I was like,
know.
I was the one that, always, because I owned the PA, I had to set it up and ring it out, and, and same thing. I mean, and I used to get picked up from high school at like age 15 and go to clubs and mix every night and do things, but, and I think but I think being a player, I was able to sit there and go, oh, well, that's not a very good guitar sound.
Right.
Oh, that is a good guitar sound. And because some people, I don't even think really, you could put 3 different snare drums up and have somebody hit it, and they couldn't tell you which one sounds right.
Right. No, I agree with you.
There's certain elements of that, and and again, to be a mixer and to really do this, I mean, how can you be standing out there in front if you really don't know that, like, oh, okay, that guitar is obviously way too bright, or this is, or there's something seriously wrong with the sound of this,
Right.
And so.
That's and I think it's an interesting take on it. I'd like to get your take. Danny with Stevie Wonder, when we were talking, he said he's got a theory that the next generation of great studio engineers is going to come from the live side, where we've kind of seen coming up that a lot of the great guys out on the road started in the studio, but you're at a point now where nobody knows what's what as far as microphones or anything else, because they're used to doing one track at a time, not a band.
No, it's true. No, yeah, you know what? I mean, I think that there's something to that. I think you're right. That, and I mean, guys that are out here now doing live sound, I mean, they just get to they get to hone their craft a lot more than they used to.
Yes.
There's guys now that I know that worked in studios for years that would love to mix every day again. Because they're just, unfortunately, there's just not the market for it anymore.
Oh yeah, no. A recording studio has become a big hole into which to dump money.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you might as well buy a boat.
Yeah. There you go. Studio, boat. Which one do you want? Okay. Well, I appreciate the time.
Not a problem.
And there we go. Thanks very much.